bending. That means the floor is still coming up. So eventually it's going to snap that thing in half. Now, even though that seems like force coming from below, it's actually redirected force from above. These pillars are holding a lot of weight, and there's a lot of roof above us holding itself up as well. Now, salt is elastic and plastic, which means it's bendy. However, it is also a sedimentary rock, which means it's laid down in layers. So inherently, that means there are going to be strong layers of salt, and there are going to be weak layers of salt. Does that make sense? Ish? Okay. So strong layers of salt are called beams. They hold themselves up to make good roofs. There's a beam of salt at 6 feet, 10 feet, 13 feet, and 17 feet. Right now we are under the 10-foot beam. It's really strong. It will not fall. However, if you mine up into a beam, you can weaken it. It will slowly sag away from the layer above and will eventually fall to the ground like all this stuff you saw on the train or in the picture over to your right. Now, part of my job down here is I'm always looking up for things that are loose, anything that would break or fall. If we see anything like that, we take one of those bars on the left of the picture there called a scaling bar, and we pry anything down. Also, we drive this route every single morning to inspect it. So if anything were to change, we know, and if anything were to fall, we can take care of it before it even got here. Now, there are currently 3 different companies underground. The Hutchins and Saw Company, they're in the miners. There's Stratica, you're taking a tour with me now. And then there's Underground Vaults and Storage, or UV&S. Now, what they do is they have just under 50 acres of the mine set aside for storage. Everything from medical records, documents, to Hollywood props and costumes that you saw on display. Now, that company was actually founded by a couple of friends who met during World War II when they were in a unit together called the Monuments Men. Their job was to track down the art the Nazis stole and return it to the rightful owners. Vast majority of that stuff they found in a salt mine in Germany. And they thought that was a pretty good idea, so they came back here, took the idea, and started their own storage company down here in the salt mine. Okay, anyone on the Tram a big car nut, super into cars? Anyone? Yeah. Yes? Okay. Can anyone guess what make and year that truck is? How's that? No? Okay. That is a 1932 Chevy pickup truck. Now, I can't quite place my thumb on it, but I think there's 1 or 2 things missing. Yeah. Now, whatever goes in the mine stays in the mine. That truck will stay down here, the tram will stay down here, the train will stay down here, and it's all going to stay down here because it's really hard to get it down here in the first place. Original shaft is only 4 by 5 feet big. That means everything has to go through that hole. That truck was small enough to be dangled below the skip with chains and cables and brought down slowly. Anything bigger, though, like the LHDs and shuttle cars you've seen, had to be cut up into pieces, brought down bit by bit, and put back together at the bottom. That's how you got stuff down here. You also notice there's no doors, caps, windshield, any of that stuff. Well, never does rain down here. You don't need them. So if you don't need it, don't bother bringing it. You also notice there's no engine, but there is an electric motor. Now, Emerson Carey, the man who owned the mine, was a really big advocate for electricity and modernizing, and he made sure his mine was the same. This was the first completely electric mine anywhere on the planet. Now, this truck used to have a 300-foot extension cord that would power the truck. And the miners tell us they used to have a game with it. They back the truck up to the wall where it's plugged in, then drive away from the wall as fast as they could until the cord yanked itself out. Then they bet on how far they could coast the truck. We're told the record's 150 feet. Whoever lost the bet, though, always had to push the truck back to the start. Do that. Unless you have a neighbor who planted a pesky bush where you don't want it, it'll take right care of that bush. Now, looking at Hutchinson, it's impossible to deny the entire city is greatly influenced by the salt mine. Let's take their high school, for example. So, the Hutchinson High School mascot is the Salt Hawk. Their pep club is nicknamed the Briny Birds. And I kid you not, the Hutchinson High School dance team is called the Salt Shakers.